Hi, everyone. I'm here today with Joanna Scott. Joanna works for Studio 88, but also married to the founder. I wanted to ask you, Joanna, tell me a little about yourself. Tell me about your background. How did you get involved in the field of marketing?
First off, hi, thank you for having me. This
Of
is
course.
such an honor. You're such an awesome human. But my early upbringing definitely shaped my career path and vision for my life. I grew up the oldest of four in Columbus, Ohio, which is where we are now. And I spent a lot of time running up and down the aisles of a small food pantry. My parents, their entire lives have been on a mission to break the cycle of poverty in underserved families in Central Ohio. So for over 40 years, I've just been influenced by their heart for people, their dedication to build this multifaceted nonprofit organization called the Center of Hope. And now it serves thousands of people across Central Ohio. I was really raised with that value of spreading hope and dignity to people around us. And really, their example and mindset influenced my decision to go into seminary school, which I know is super unconventional. And Josh has his story as well, because we went together, my husband. And we pursued vocational ministries. We actually started off over a decade in vocational pastoral ministry, working with students and churches, helping them grow, leading teams. It's a little bit of a different entry point into dentistry. Back in like 2016, I was at a professional crossroads and I had just been fired from an executive position, large growing church near here. And it was devastating to me. I didn't see it coming. There was no purpose in it. And I was working for a very narcissistic, emotionally abusive boss. And after that event happened, I had to either gonna curl up into a ball and just stay there or pick myself up and start again and start a new beginning and just rethink my purpose. This event, it happened right around when Josh started Studio 88, which was 11 years ago. Studio 88 is dentistry's story-driven marketing agency. So we talked about the fact that I could either continue going on my own professional path, but what would it be like if we ran fast together and grow this thing together? So in 2018, I started with Studio 88 as the business development director. And I'm also on the front lines of recruiting all of our awesome team members. It's been a pure joy to work with my husband and also just our insanely awesome team.
That's amazing because we have a similar role with my wife. She is the CFO of all of the businesses that we have, and she's in the background as well. And when I approached you for this interview, you told me I don't usually do these things, but let's see how it goes. But I wanted to ask you, what influenced you to work with Josh and do the marketing? Who are your biggest mentors?
Yeah, it's interesting. Before I committed to help Josh grow Studio 88, I wasn't fully convinced that dentistry was human enough for me. Everything up to this point for me professionally had been very heart and people centric. So my biggest question was, is dentistry full of humans with big hearts and a big enough of a vision? 6 years ago, we attended our very first dental conference in Jamaica. We hardly knew anyone, completely new to the dental conference space. And I remember hearing speaker after speaker take the stage and tell their stories. And I was like moved with emotion. It really took me off guard. And in that moment, I understood how human the profession of dentistry truly is. And dentists and their teams have the biggest hearts, and they truly care about saving lives and what they do on a daily basis. And they want to create a difference inside the chair and out of it. And so after this experience, I've never looked back. Dentistry has won my heart over and over a million times since then.
That's awesome. What conference was that? Anissa's?
It was Anissa's meeting. It was actually her very first summit in Jamaica. And we've actually been to every summit and supported the DWOW summit every year. It was cool to be there for her very first one, and it just really impacted me.
Yeah, Anissa is a good friend. She's also a sponsor of our group, and she's also my coach for my own business. So
Oh,
we have a big connection there. What I wanted to ask you was about the company,
mhm.
Studio 88. I recommend you guys to dentists that come to me for questions and are struggling. And I realize that they have something they're not talking about, and that's their story. I talk to a lot of immigrant dentists here that have gone through so much to get here, So always tell them you need to talk to Studio 88 and see what they can do for you. Tell me a little about this storytelling of Studio 88. I saw it firsthand. And now that you say you guys were in seminary school, I now realize why Josh is such a great speaker.
Yeah, he's been speaking, from church stages since he was in high school. So yeah, absolutely.
I got to tell you, he was telling the story of a dentist. I was at Dr. Lin Tao's seminar, and
Yeah.
he was speaking there. And I sat through that lecture and I was looking around. There were a lot of people in tears when that story was going on. It was amazing to me. And tell me a little about that.
Yeah. And I can share, just start off with just a little bit of our why Studio 88 exists and where really the heart and soul behind it is. 11 years ago, we noticed a growing problem in the profession, and it's that dental marketing on the whole was just lacking. It's full of stock photography, templated websites. It wasn't telling dentistry's beautiful story, which, as you and I have just talked about, is a very human profession. And we believe that dental marketing should represent that. So we launched Studio 88, and we work with dentists all over the nation to help them create a custom digital marketing experience with a focus on story. We found that story and connection are what really truly builds trust with patients. And all of us, at the end of the day, we're craving real, authentic connection online now more than ever. And so that's a little bit of like how we got into it.
Tell me a little about what sets you guys apart. Is it the people? Is it the concept? I believe it should be a combination of both.
Yeah, for sure. Studio 88 is definitely different from other marketing companies. And we've defined 4 uniques, and I could just touch on each of them really quickly, that really sets us apart from the noise out there in the marketing world. The first one would be best of both worlds. If you have a beautiful website, but you can't be found online, that's not good. But if you were easily found and have great SEO, but your website doesn't represent your story and who you are, that's not good either. So we've worked really hard to take both of those things. So our solution provides websites that are custom design and copy and story driven, but also can be found easily online and perform well. The second would be pre-production for life. We found and run into a lot of dentists that are changing their marketing strategy and needing new fresh photography or video. And they'll start with a new marketing company without realizing that every time you start working with a new company that doesn't know them or who they are, it's like restarting your marketing momentum. So it doesn't make sense long term. On the flip side, we have clients that have built a website with us, let's say 9+ years ago. And every 2 to 3 years, all we have to do is swap out the photography and video, just give it a fresh look. And the fact is, when you build something of quality, it lasts longer. Our solution to this is every 24 months, we provide our clients with a free production session, photography or video. And that really refreshes their site and solves the problem of, let's say, any team turnover, or they refresh their space. Third, last agency you'll ever need, we position ourselves to build a digital experience that can grow with your practice as you grow. So we provide comprehensive marketing services in addition to the website experience. And then last, we're not the best fit for every dentist out there, but we simply want to work with the ones that consider themselves different and want to be seen as unique in their respective communities. And so probably one of our biggest wins and what we're really known for is each of our clients experience a dedicated account manager that's your main point of contact for the longevity of your relationship. So we're not just like passing you off to a call center. So you work with one account manager your entire, hopefully you stay with us forever, and you get to know them, they get to know you, they help you in discovering your story and build brand equity year after year. And so those are just to hit on 4 uniques. That's why we're different than a lot of other
That's
agents.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I wanted to talk about why I asked you to actually be here. As we talked before we started recording, I created my group as a support group for all dentists. And this started, my story is that it was 8 days after the pandemic shutdown. And I saw how everyone was at each other's neck. It was tough times. It was really stressful for everyone. And I realized that I wanted a space that gave a voice to men and women in the dental community, because I noticed that a lot of women were just lurkers, as we call them on internet forums, and they weren't commenting. And if they commented, sometimes they were met with aggressive behavior. And I wanted to make sure everybody got easier time to communicate. So when I saw you have a documentary that talks about women in dentistry, it caught my attention. Tell me a little about that. What inspired you to create a documentary about that?
Thank you for asking. It's very near and dear to my heart, so I love talking about it. It's the coolest project I've ever probably professionally worked on. The past few years, I've engaged in so many conversations with podcast discussions with women who have boldly taken their place at the table and assumed leadership roles. And these ladies, they're remarkable, and they have began leaving a real lasting impression on me and have been really catalysts for the change they wish to see in the world. And their stories, coupled with this growing influx of women going into the dental profession at unprecedented rates, it really inspired me to further explore, why is this happening? So this project actually took 8 months of planning and preparation. So it was last August, I had this idea. And if you want, I can give you like a little backstory into kind of the two main characters in the film. So it all started with my friendship with Dr. Sharon Parsons. So she's the former president of the Ohio Dental Association, practicing dentist here in Columbus, forerunner for opioid addiction awareness and education. So her story began in the late 1970s in dental school, and it takes us on a journey of experiences she triumphed over to get to where she is today. If you've met Sharon, you would know she's a fabulous storyteller. It blows your mind. And she's fought through so much adversity to care for the dental profession at large. The second cast member I should mention is Fiona Chambers. So she's this lovely, strong, determined fourth-year dental school student at The Ohio State University. She's the president of their local ASDA group. And Studio 88 has been able to support their events, every year because they're local. And that's how I got connected with Fiona. Since both Sharon and Fiona attended the Ohio State University Dental School program, it only made sense to me. It was like, what if we bring them together and discover the parallels and also the vast differences that each of their generations represented? Watching, Sharon's experiences, and I know you've seen the documentary of being in dental school in the 1970s and compared to Fiona's current day, it's really wild when you see it play out in the documentary. These two women's stories are really different. And then really the third kind of layer to the documentary was last year, I attended the Dental Entrepreneur Women's Retreat with Ann Duffy. And I really wanted to bring in some other varying perspectives. And so we have cast members like Ann Duffy, Dr. Hazel Glasper, Dr. Sonia Chopra, Catherine Eitel Belt. And it really just all came together in the most beautiful way. And I don't know, every time I watch it, I feel emotional.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What kind of reception have you gotten from the dental community? What kind of impact has it had?
Yeah, we did a virtual live watch party, which I think you were on there. It was back in April and had over 200 people register. So we all watched it together. We had all the cast members on and did a fun Q&A with them, which was a blast. But the overall response from the dental community has been really positive. We continue to be blown away by weekly messages from men and women who are watching it maybe for the first time or introducing it to their audiences. I think people, even dentists, the feedback I've received, that they're so surprised at some of the history that was shared in the film and just the level of hardship that some of the doctors like Sharon Parsons went through decades ago. And yeah, so overall, it's been really awesome.
Yeah, it's a great thing. And again, we're going to mention where people can watch this documentary in the caption of this video afterwards. How do you think the dental community can better support women in dentistry?
I'm not a dentist, practice owner like you are. We're hygienists. But what I do know, after hearing hundreds of stories from the men and women that Studio 88 has interviewed, is that dentistry is hard. It brings challenges from the moment you begin your clinical years in school to taking that leap to starting your practice or acquiring one. And it's full of some of the best humans in the world. However, the profession can feel very isolating. And so one of the ways we can combat that issue is by bringing everybody together to spotlight the stories that need to be shared and recognized. So there's still so much growth for women to step into leadership roles in the profession. And I know you and I touched on that before we started recording. But personally, myself, I created a podcast called the Story Project Podcast. So it focuses solely on women leaders in dentistry. And it's a video driven show. And so it's really awesome to dive into these stories. And what I believe passionately about is the more we talk about our struggles, how we got through them, the less isolating that person listening feels when they're going through that same thing. Last, I would say this. I believe that the dental community can better support women in dentistry by inviting them to lead in whatever capacity. That could be writing articles, speaking from stages, podcasting, leading meetings, to find their voice and to not allow imposter syndrome or a lack of opportunity to silence them. We can support women by looking them in the eye during meetings and negotiations, paying attention to what they believe, think, and welcoming their advice, input, and expertise. Women are uniquely different from men with their capacity for empathy and emotion. They are huge drivers for the places in our world that feel human. So we need women in dentistry to be on equal footing with any other man in the room. The only way we can move together stronger is if men and women do it together. Some of the feedback, even just like on my podcast with these women in these interviews, is they're telling me, Joanna, it's great that more women are entering dental school and graduating from dental school. However, more progress is needed. And really, the progress is we need more women in leadership, like I mentioned, finding their voice, taking stages, speaking, all of that. And so I think the feedback I've heard is we have to draw attention to it and continue to have more open conversations around it, and instead of acting like it's not happening.
Absolutely. Joanna, can you mention where we can watch this documentary? I will put the links in
Yeah,
the caption as well.
it is. Yeah, you can go to s8e8.com and then it's /WSDT. And you can also search Women Shaping Dentistry Tomorrow on YouTube and find it there as well.
That's great. I wanted to thank you for being here today. This was awesome. And hopefully we can have a watch party for this video in my group and go from there. Do you have anything else you want to add at the end?
I don't think so. I'll leave you with a quote from Dr. Sharon Parsons, and maybe this will spark some interest to watch the documentary. But she said the most profound thing in the film. She said, if you don't have a woman at the table, you have an incomplete table. And I'll just leave you with some words of wisdom from her.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much. And I hope to do this again with you, maybe next year on your next project.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you, Dr. Bob. Appreciate you.
Thank you.